Revealed, a wealthy widower's incredible challenge to find a wife in just 24 hours. Jack Thompson stood at the window of his Maplewood home, the morning sun illuminating his thoughts like the kind of light his late wife, Margaret, adored. The weight of grief hung in the air, thick and palpable, anchoring him to a past he couldn't escape. Friends had begun to nudge, just a gentle poke here and there. Family, too, with concerned eyes leading to murmured suggestions that shook him. You should consider remarrying, Jack. The thought disturbed him more than he cared to admit. He slid into the familiar booth at the local diner, tracing the worn wood with fingertips that felt as though they belonged to someone else. Reflecting on the life he once shared with Margaret, he heard the distant laughter of children mingling with the hiss of the grill. Dread settled in his stomach as he acknowledged his desperation. To conform, to find someone within 24 hours? Anxiety gripped him as he faced an impossible question. Would he choose his heart or social expectation? At a nearby table, Sarah, a single mother, engaged him in talk. Her determination to make something of herself ignited admiration but drew only a lukewarm response from his heart. There was no spark, just a cold reminder of how alone he truly felt. The clock ticked ominously, its presence a reminder that time was not just a passing notion, it was pressure closing in. He shifted uneasily, heart racing with the possibility of failure. Then came Lisa, the passionate artist, whose story resonated but sparkled only fleetingly, like a flame that dies out before it truly warms you. Jack's thoughts spiraled around the reality of his struggle. Was he even ready for this? Could he mask his deep-set grief for the facade of companionship? It was infuriating how society dictated what he should feel, but the clock was relentless. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Hope flickered again as Jack met Emily, the waitress with laughter as bright as the sun warming the diner. Her aspirations of being an artist matched his longing for a purpose beyond pain, sparking a connection he hadn't dared dreamed of. As he listened to her enthusiasm, he fought a wave of conflicting emotions. Was he truly ready to step into a new life? The genuine conversation opened a door in him, but what would society, that cruel taskmaster covering everything in expectation, say if he chose her? His heart surged, a mixture of excitement and dread tightening within him. What if, at the charity gala, it wasn't enough to simply bring someone he felt good about? Could a shared artistic dream withstand the judgment of a town that had painted him as the wealthy surgeon with a dead wife? There, under bright lights, would love be enough to soothe his wounds? Or would it merely amplify the echoes of his loneliness? In that moment of maximum anguish, the question loomed larger than life. Could he waste a chance for a genuine connection to keep face in Maplewood? As the clock ticked closer and the weight of decision bore down on him, he realized his greatest dilemma. The line between seeking genuine companionship and safe societal acceptance blurred before him. Would he rise to seize the fleeting glimmer of love by his side, or choose the hollow comfort of just being seen as the wealthy widower? The stakes had never felt higher, and time was running out. Jack's mind raced as he left the diner, the world outside spinning into a blur of color and sound that felt both vibrant and cruel. He had always been a man of certainty, his life meticulously planned with surgical precision. But now, each tick of the clock echoed like a taunt, urging him toward decisions he felt wholly unprepared to make. He walked the familiar route home, but everything felt different. The trees lining the street swayed with an uncharacteristic urgency, as if they sensed his internal turmoil. The very air seemed to vibrate with expectations, his own and those of the world around him. Each step brought him closer to a confrontation not only with others but with himself, the person he had grown suspicious of in this new era of sudden loss and potential. Arriving back at his house, Jack paused at the door. Something deep within him stirred, a whisper that questioned the status quo he had accepted since Margaret's death. He had worn his grief like a cloak, a protective barrier against the world, but now it threatened to suffocate him. Perhaps, just perhaps, he owed it to himself to peel away those layers and reveal something new. His eyes darted around the living room, absorbing the memories that had once been a comfort, but now felt suffocating. Margaret's favorite vase was still front and center, a relic of the life they had built together. But today, it no longer filled him with warmth. Rather, it highlighted the emptiness that lingered in its wake. Rolling his shoulders back, Jack decided it was time to challenge the narrative that had enveloped him. This wasn't merely about finding a suitable partner to please society's inquisitive gaze. This was about reclaiming a part of himself he had all but buried, the desire for connection, for joy, and for hope. He grabbed a notepad, his surgeon's handwriting steady, as he began to outline a plan. First on the list, break free from the confines of his grief. He needed to engage with life as it was now, not as it had been. No more hiding behind the guise of the grieving widower. It was time to step out as Jack Thompson, a man seeking love and fulfillment, no matter how daunting the path might be. What remained of that sunlight-filled conversation with Emily echoed in his mind, intermingling with the burdens he had carried alone for too long. He had felt a rare spark, something that flickered with possibility. He needed to explore whether it could flourish, rather than allowing his indecision to extinguish it. As he wrote, his heart pounded with newfound resolve. He drafted a list of qualities he sought in a partner, reflecting on what had drawn him to Emily, her passion, her laughter, the genuine zeal for life that ignited something dormant within him. Did he dare reach out again? The thought sent tremors through him. Wasn't he putting himself on the line? Jack's brows furrowed as he contemplated the implications. He could remain safely ensconced in his cocoon of sorrow, but staying there meant never knowing the joy of love again. The prospect of vulnerability both excited and terrified him, like peering over the edge of a deep gorge. He was teetering on that precipice, and somewhere in that moment, a decision crystallized. He would reach out to Emily. As he inhaled deeply, steeling himself for action, the essence of his transformation settled within him. This would be a bold stride, not just toward a potential romantic relationship, but a step toward reclaiming joy and purpose in his life. Grief had ruled long enough. It was time for healing, for growth, for resurgence. With the clock ticking ever closer to the charity gala, his determination surged. He was about to send a text, a simple invitation to meet again, when the weight of those final moments hit him like a crash. What if Emily refused? Just as self-doubt threatened to engulf him, Jack hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. The weight of potential rejection sat heavily, not just as a fear of the moment, but as a reflection of the work he would have to do on himself. Was he truly capable of stepping into the light, regardless of the outcome? He gathered his thoughts, ready to confront his fears rather than be bound by them. Because whether he succeeded in forging a genuine connection or not, he was determined to embrace the uncertainty that lay ahead. Something fundamental was shifting within. He could feel it, a pulse of newfound resolve. The moment of truth was here, and he could either choose the path of safety or the exhilarating uncertainty of growth. He pressed send, the message whisking away to the ether, carrying weighty implications for his journey ahead. And with that, he couldn't help but wonder, what awaited him on the other side of this leap of faith? Would he find love, or merely a painful reminder of loss? Each possibility held power, and Jack Thompson was finally ready to face whatever came next. The soft buzz of his phone jolted Jack from his thoughts, shattering the fragile peace he had found in his decision. A message from Emily flashed on the screen, and his breath hitched. In that moment, all the anticipation he had built evaporated, replaced by a rising tide of anxiety. What could she possibly say? He steeled himself for the inevitable range of emotions that lay ahead. With trembling hands, he opened the message. It was an invitation to meet at a local cafe, a casual suggestion that felt like an olive branch. His heart surged with relief mixed with exhilaration. She had agreed, but just as quickly as joy surged, doubt flared again. What if she felt pity for him? Or worse, what if she really was just being polite? The fear of rejection loomed like a shadow, threatening to capsize his resolve. Instead of lingering on those anxious thoughts, Jack flipped his notepad over and jotted down everything he wanted to share with her. The qualities he admired, the way she made him feel alive, and his intentions. He would lay everything bare. An honest conversation might pave the way for a genuine connection. Realizing that he could no longer be the passive player in his own narrative, he crafted an outline for their meeting. He wasn't merely looking for a casual chat. He wanted to articulate his desire to embrace life again, with all its complexities and uncertainties. Each pen stroke translated into determination. his words becoming an anchor as he prepared for the moment of truth. As time sped forward, he found himself at the cafe, hands gripping the table as he waited for her arrival. The air inside felt thick, saturated with a mixture of anticipation and unease. He was a surgeon accustomed to precision, but this felt distinctly outside the realm of his control. Instead of patients and diagnoses, he now navigated the unpredictable territory of emotions, his own and those of another person. When she entered, it was as if time paused. Emily appeared more vibrant than he remembered, her laughter cascading like sunlight into the dim light of the cafe. He stood, heart racing, as she approached. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, one that hinted at shared moments and untapped potential. "Jack, I'm glad you could make it," she said, her voice ringing with cheerful sincerity. He forced himself to respond, absorbing the warmth of her presence. But beneath the surface, he knew that he walked a precarious line. The stakes were higher than ever, and the emotional price could be monumental. They settled into an easy rhythm at first, discussing everything from mundane topics to shared memories, until he sensed a pivotal moment approaching. He needed to shift gears, to expose the depth of what had stirred in him through their prior conversations. "Emily," he began, drawing in a sharp breath, "I want to be honest about something. Ever since we last spoke, I've been thinking about what life could be like without the shadows of my past constantly dictating my present." He hesitated, feeling vulnerable as the words poured out. "You've ignited a hope in me that I thought I had lost." The moment hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. His honesty opened a window, yet the risk of potential heartbreak was palpable. She leaned in, urging him to continue. The encouragement was a balm for his raw nerve endings. "Please understand, I'm still navigating my grief," he added, searching for the right words. "But despite that, I want to embrace life again. I'm ready to chase joy and love if it means moving forward." Her expression softened, intrigue flickering in her gaze. "I appreciate your honesty, Jack," she replied carefully, "and that's a brave step." Yet the conversation was a double-edged sword. Jack realized that while he sought connection, he also risked revealing the depths of his vulnerability. What if opening his heart ultimately led to disappointment? The question lingered ominously, beckoning his doubts back into the forefront. Was he truly ready for this leap? With the conversation unfolding before him, Jack realized that this was more than just a quest for companionship. He was forging a new identity, one that acknowledged loss and welcomed the potential for love. If he could navigate through the shadows of grief, perhaps he could truly reclaim his life. Just as the conversation deepened, the air around them thickened with an unexpected tension. Someone entered the cafe that made Jack's heart drop. It was a figure from his past that he had long avoided, a face that could unravel the tenuous thread of progress he was trying to weave. The moment shifted, and Jack could feel the weight of unresolved issues pressing against him. Would he have the resilience to confront his past while pursuing a future with Emily? The stakes now felt immeasurable, and as he breathed in deeply, Jack understood that the path he was carving was about to take an unforeseen turn. The figure in the doorway seemed to draw all the warmth from the cafe, replacing it with a chill that gnawed at Jack's insides. As recognition flickered across his features, he fought to maintain his composure, a surgeon expertly disguising a trembling heart. Emily continued to talk, her voice a soothing backdrop against the chaotic surge inside him. Yet every word she spoke was drowned out by the pounding of his pulse. Who would have thought? There he was, attempting to redefine his life and rekindle feelings that had lain dormant for so long, and here stepped in a ghost from his past. Caleb, a former colleague and a source of unhealed wounds, had entered the cafe with a confidence that felt utterly foreign to Jack. Caleb represented everything Jack had sought to escape: the public acknowledgement of his loss, the whispers of pity, and the reminders of a life he had once lived in full color. In an effort to suppress his shifting emotions, Jack focused on Emily, grounding himself in the present. Her brow furrowed slightly, her voice momentarily faltering as she noticed his distraction. "Jack, are you okay?" He knew he had to rein this back in, but that slip felt monumental. "Yeah, sorry, he stammered, his eyes darting towards Caleb again, who now surveyed the cafe with an air of casual superiority, the kind that always rubbed Jack the wrong way. "Something just caught my attention." Emily looked toward Caleb, and a flash of confusion crossed her face. He could see the questions forming in her mind. Who is this man? Why does Jack look like he's seen a ghost? He needed to shield her from the strain of his history, but the weight of his past was heavier than he had anticipated. "Let's get back to what you were saying," she urged, but anxiety tangled Jack's thoughts. This was more than a simple conversation. His healing hinged on his ability to navigate this maze of emotions. Those haunting memories of Caleb could easily undermine the progress he hoped to make. With a deep breath, Jack shifted his focus entirely onto Emily, crafting a mental barricade against the onslaught of conflicting feelings. He allowed himself to tap into the sincerity he had expressed just moments before, aiming to invigorate the connection they had started to build with untarnished honesty. "I was just saying that I want to understand what it means to embrace life again. That means facing fears, confronting my past, not just running from it." Her gaze remained earnest, and he could feel her genuine interest radiating from across the table. "That's a brave decision," she replied, her voice steady and reassuring. "Sometimes you have to face the shadows in order to truly see the light." As the conversation shifted back to shared hopes and dreams, Caleb's presence continued to linger like a specter. Jack made a mental note to confront him later, to find a way to untangle the threads of their shared history. But for now, he had to concentrate on what was happening in front of him. Emily was refreshing, a stark contrast to the remnants of a life lived in expectation and grief. He began to articulate his goal for the future, focusing on his desire to be present, to accept the authenticity of the emotions tugging at him. Despite the pulse of worry emanating from Caleb's presence, something deeper was emerging in Jack. He felt the stirrings of ambition. He wasn't just looking for love, he was claiming back life, piece by piece. But the piece was delicate. As Jack poured out his heart to Emily, he felt each word solidifying the foundations of a potential future. Yet every laugh, every shared moment felt precarious, like a tightrope walk above a chasm. He couldn't ignore the urgency of the confrontation that awaited him across the room. As he glanced back toward Caleb, he felt that mix of trepidation and resolve settle in his chest. The moment had come to address his past head-on. The anticipation twisted in his gut, and he recognized that the only way to fully embrace his future with Emily was to face Caleb. He could no longer afford to let shadows dictate his path. Jack felt the weight of decision pressing against him. Would he find the courage to face Caleb, or would old fears reclaim him? As their conversation flowed on, he knew his confrontation with Caleb loomed closer, and the outcome could alter everything. The moment stretched between Jack and Caleb, a taut string waiting to snap. Jack glanced back at Emily, her warmth serving as a buffer against the chill creeping over him. He took a breath, steadying the quaking of his resolve. This wasn't just about Caleb. It was about reclaiming his narrative, becoming the architect of his life rather than a mere spectator. "Excuse me for just a moment," Jack said, his voice steadier than he felt as he stood up. Emily's concerned look lingered in his mind, a gentle prod reminding him of the stakes involved. He knew that getting through this confrontation was vital not just for himself but for the uncertain future that teetered precariously on the brink. Jack moved through the cafe, the vibrant buzz of conversation receding, as he closed the distance to Caleb, who was leaning casually against the counter, chatting with the barista as if he were the only person in the room. Jack summoned every ounce of fortitude within him. This was his moment to break free from the paralyzing grip of the past. "Caleb," he said, his voice gravelly but firm. Caleb turned, a semblance of surprise washing over his face before it morphed into a knowing smirk. "Jack, didn't expect to see you here amidst all this," he gestured around, his arrogance palpable. "Nor did I," Jack replied, his own disbelief at finding Caleb in this setting simmering just beneath the surface. "What are you doing here?" "Just passing through the area. Had some business to wrap up?" Caleb let the last word carry a weight that felt disingenuous. Jack searched his face, feeling the acceleration of his heartbeat. The familiar unease began to creep in, but he pushed it away. This time, he aimed to be clear and resolute. "Look, Caleb, we need to talk." The statement surprised them both, and Caleb raised an eyebrow. "About what? Old times?" "No, about now. About the impact you had on my life." Jack felt a flicker of power in sharing his truth, however raw. "You think the past is closed off as if it's just a chapter? It isn't for me. I'm done letting it define me." Caleb's expression shifted, curiosity mixed with condescension. "Oh, really?" And what makes you think you can just rewrite history? You were a ghost, Jack, a fading memory. I've moved on. And I deserve to move on too, Jack fired back. Each word felt like a clarion call, cutting through the fog of doubt. Your presence isn't a specter haunting me anymore. You might see it that way, but I'm charting a new course. A flicker of irritation flashed in Caleb's eyes. This was not the reaction he had expected. Jack's determination was unnerving, a resolve layered in years of unprocessed feelings. The realization struck him. This was more than a confrontation. This was the crucible within which he would transform his wounds into strength. Don't get all high and mighty, Jack, Caleb warned, the playfulness dropping. You were nothing without my connections. Don't forget that. Connections? Jack scoffed. Those connections kept me shackled to expectations and failures. I have been fighting to reclaim who I am beyond the labels that were placed on me. Caleb straightened, a shadow crossing his features as he peered at Jack like he was a puzzle to solve. But Jack refused to be an enigma any longer. He was not just a footnote in Caleb's story. He had the power to redirect his own narrative. What are you planning to do with that newfound power? Disrupt the status quo? Take me down? Caleb retorted, leaning in closer, bearing witness to Jack's resurgence. No, Jack replied, clarity piercing through the haze of uncertainty. I plan to embrace life fully, starting with this conversation. I want to live without the burden of our past. The resolve stemmed from a deeper sense of self-acceptance, a confrontation not only with Caleb, but with his own insecurities and doubts. Jack stood firm, realizing that this moment was an opportunity to redefine his future and reestablish his agency. Caleb's gaze flickered away, the bravado slipping as a layer of doubt intruded upon his confidence. In that moment, Jack saw a chance for reflection. This isn't just about my past. It's about both of us moving forward, acknowledging that we are not who we were. Would Caleb allow this acknowledgement to ricochet into introspection, or would he dismiss it, retreating back to his self-created edifice? Jack felt emboldened, each moment painting a clearer picture of his burgeoning strength. He had entered this confrontation prepared for conflict, but now it appeared it could lead to something even more profound, a connection redefining both their lives. As he waited for Caleb's reply, Jack sensed the ground shifting underfoot, the thrill of possibility intoxicating. Yet uncertainty loomed heavy in the air. Would this serve as the catalyst for change in their fraught history, or would it stifle in confrontation, leaving Jack hanging on the precipice of his own growth? Jack could almost hear the quiet call of destiny resonating inside him, promising that the next step would hold the answers he sought. The moment of transformational truth was brimming, and he found himself hoping it would lead to a resolution that had eluded him for so long. Caleb hesitated, his bravado fraying at the edges as Jack's words hung heavily in the air. A flicker of emotion played across his face, confusion mingling with annoyance. For years, Jack had been a mere shadow in his life, a background character in a story dictated by Caleb's whims. The unexpected emergence of Jack's conviction rattled the foundations of their dynamic, and Caleb could no longer rely on the power he had wielded for so long. I didn't come here to get into a debate about the past, Caleb finally replied, his tone sharper than before. He stepped back, crossing his arms defensively. What exactly are you trying to prove? Jack felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him, but he drew strength from the clarity that had emerged during this exchange. I'm not trying to prove anything, Caleb. I'm claiming my voice back. You may see it as an argument, but for me, it's a chance to reclaim my identity. In that moment, Jack questioned whether he had enough strength to sustain this confrontation. Could he navigate this treacherous emotional landscape without losing sight of his goal? The determination stemming from years of feeling overlooked surged through him. Caleb was used to being in charge, to shaping conversations to suit his narrative. Seeing Jack stand resolute challenged him. Instead of the raging confrontation he might have preferred, he was faced with a man determined to forge a new path. And what will that path be? Caleb asked, his tone wavering between curiosity and contempt. That path is about authenticity, Jack forged ahead, each word imbued with conviction. It's about pursuing my passions, surrounding myself with those who lift me up, and breaking free from the chains that define me under your shadow. Jack's vision of growth illuminated a reality he had long buried. No longer was he a passive participant. He had become the catalyst in his own story. It was exhilarating, frightening, yet undeniably empowering. He could feel the passion coursing through him, igniting a fire he hadn't felt in years. Caleb scoffed, but there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. That easy, huh? Just decide to be someone else? You don't realize that life's messier than that, Jack? You think ambition and wishful thinking are all it takes? Maybe not easy, but it's better than being a memory. Jack felt the tension shift as he spoke. The momentum was building within him, like waves finding their rhythm. I've spent far too long tiptoeing around your expectations, letting your dominance shape my actions. I'm ready to take ownership, to carve out what's truly mine. In that instant, something inside Jack clicked. He wasn't just reclaiming his agency. He was elevating the narrative, not just for himself, but perhaps for Caleb too. It was about understanding that their stories were intertwined. Sometimes, releasing the past also set others free. Caleb's mask cracked slightly as he processed Jack's assertion. There was an unsettling look in his eyes, one that suggested he felt threatened by the empowerment radiating from Jack. This wasn't just an argument, it was a turning point in both their lives. You really think this could be a breakthrough for us? Caleb's voice softened, almost contemplative. You think I want to see you succeed? The revelation that Caleb might actually be challenged by Jack's growth sent a fresh wave of certainty through him. It doesn't matter whether you want it or not. I'm not waiting for your approval any longer. Each word embodied the strength he had nurtured, spurring him forward. But Caleb's expression twisted, revealing that his confrontation was still laced with self-preservation. Jack recognized that he could no longer be the man defined by their tumultuous past. He was evolving right before Caleb's eyes, and the implications of this change hung heavily between them. As the silence stretched, Jack's heart raced with the realization of what lay ahead. This conversation could either ignite a profound shift or plunge them further into disarray. His instincts kicked in as he prepared for the answer that could shape their fates. Are you ready to confront what that change means for both of us? Jack asked, a challenge lacing his words. Caleb remained lost in contemplation, the tension thick in the air. Jack was aware they stood at a precipice, with potential paths stretching out far from their past. A pivotal decision was looming, one that could either solidify Jack's newfound resolve or unravel everything he had fought for. The moment resonated with unresolved energy, leaving Jack uncertain, yet hopeful. It was time for Caleb to either embrace change or retreat into the confines of his old self. Jack could feel the pulse of change thrumming beneath the surface, and it beckoned him onward into the uncertainty of what was yet to come. Would this confrontation forge a new connection, or would it expose the fractures in their past, leaving them stranded once more? Jack felt the weight of his words settle in the thick silence that enveloped them. Was it naive to hope for a breakthrough, or was it a sign of his newfound clarity? The intensity of the moment sharpened his focus. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the possibility of unearthing a deeper understanding between them. Caleb's gaze remained fixed on the ground, as if searching for answers buried in the cracks of the pavement. Jack sensed the struggle within him, an internal war between grappling with the reality of change and clinging to a crumbling facade. What would it take for Caleb to trust in the potential of this new chapter? The thought gnawed at Jack, compelling him to push further. Caleb, he said softly, I know you're afraid, but we cannot shape future paths while tethered to the past. I'm ready to evolve, aren't you? The question hung in the air, reverberating like a drumbeat, demanding a response. As Jack waited, he could feel the air shift, charged with an electric energy. Was Caleb recognizing the possibility of mutual growth? Or was he retreating into the familiarity of his defenses? Finally, Caleb took a deep breath, visibly trying to collect himself. You think I don't want to change? His voice trembled, a mixture of indignation and vulnerability. I've just always known how things work. You leave, I remain. It's survival. Jack fought the urge to roll his eyes at the excuse. Survival was not thriving. It was stifling. He wanted to shake Caleb, to make him see the potential for a life unchained from bitterness. Survival isn't enough, Caleb. It hasn't been for a long time. And what you're calling survival has only held you captive. Fear keeps us from realizing our true selves. Caleb winced at the confrontation, yet there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. Jack pressed on. You can step into this with me, or you can remain a prisoner of your own making. I'm not going to let this define my future, and neither should you. The conversation was no longer just a standoff. It was a catalyst for introspection. Jack could see barriers beginning to dismantle, piece by piece. This challenge was as much for Caleb as it was for him. Both of them had become strange players in a game of shadows, but it was essential to flip the script. As Caleb raised his gaze, there was a mix of fear and determination brewing beneath his hardened exterior. "It feels impossible," he admitted, his voice softer now. "To think I could start anew? To give up the armor I've worn for so long." Jack's heart raced. This was the moment of truth, the opening he had been waiting for. "It's not about giving up," he emphasized. "It's about shedding what was never truly you in the first place. Trust yourself. Believe there's more to discover beyond this." Caleb stood there, lost in contemplation. Jack could almost see the gears turning, a once impenetrable fortress crumbling under the weight of possibility, yet uncertainty lingered like shadows at dusk. "How do I start?" Caleb finally asked, the tremor in his voice hinting at vulnerability. The question wasn't just practical, it was laden with the weight of hope and fear entwined. Jack offered a small, encouraging smile, the tension shifting towards something more inviting. "We start by acknowledging that change is daunting, but it doesn't have to be solitary. Together we can confront that discomfort." He stepped forward, the distance between them shrinking as he extended a hand, symbolizing a bridge toward collaboration. Caleb stared at Jack's outstretched palm for a moment, processing what was being offered. A partnership born from struggle, vulnerability, and potential. But just as Caleb seemed ready to respond, a look of hesitation crossed his face. "What if I can't? What if I slip back into old habits?" The weight of that query hung between them, and Jack felt the urgency of the moment swell. "What if you do?" he countered, a spark in his eyes. "Every stumble is a chance to rise stronger. It's not about perfection. It's about the journey of self-discovery." As Jack stood there, heart pounding with the high stakes, he could sense something monumental at play. Whether this was the beginning of a steadfast connection or the unraveling of all he had fought for, they teetered on the brink of transformation. Caleb hesitated, looking from Jack's hopeful expression to the ghost of their shared past. Would he grasp the lifeline offered, or would he retreat? The atmosphere crackled with potential, and Jack waited for the hand to reach out. But a sudden noise shattered the moment, pulling their attention away, a siren in the distance, a vivid reminder of the world outside their confrontation. Time pressed down upon them more than ever, compelling them toward an answer. Would this challenge become a turning point, or would it lead to yet another fracture in their delicate equilibrium? The siren faded into the distance, but the tension lingered, thickening the air around them. Jack felt his heart racing, each beat echoing his anticipation. He had laid the groundwork for a pivotal moment, one that could either solidify their bond or force them apart. Caleb's silence stretched painfully long, and in that moment, Jack's resolve hardened. He would not let fear govern his choices anymore. "Let's break this down together," Jack said, adopting a more practical tone to ease Caleb's burgeoning anxiety. "What's one thing you've always wanted to do but felt you couldn't? Let's make that our first step." Caleb's eyes darted to Jack, their depths revealing a mixture of surprise and introspection. "I've never thought about it that way," he muttered, almost to himself. "I mean, everything I wanted always seemed out of reach." Jack nodded, pressing forward. "Let's redefine out of reach. Consider it a goal you can approach. We'll tackle it as a team." For the first time, Jack saw Caleb's defenses begin to crack further. A slight change in his posture suggested vulnerability, a signal that perhaps he was willing to shift from survival mode into a space of exploration. "I guess if I had to choose, I always wanted to travel, to see the world instead of feeling stuck here." "It's a start," Jack said, his tone warm with encouragement. "How about we plan a trip? Even if it's just a day hike to somewhere new, it's action in the right direction." Caleb mulled it over, his brows knitting together. "A hike?" He chuckled softly, a sound so foreign to their conversation. "That doesn't seem to compare with traveling overseas, does it?" "Every journey begins with a single step," Jack countered, his voice steady. "Besides, we need to build your confidence gradually. It's about breaking down the walls first." Jack quietly absorbed the courage it took for Caleb to reveal his desire. Caleb sighed, a sound that weighed heavily with both renewed hope and his almost instinctual skepticism. "What if I fail? What if I can't even handle something as simple as a hike?" "Failure isn't a zero-sum game," Jack shot back with more firmness than he had intended. "Every attempt is a learning opportunity. You'll figure out more about yourself through the process than you ever would by standing still. There was no more dancing around the idea. Caleb needed a catalyst for change, someone to challenge his ingrained fears. Taking a deep breath, Caleb finally nodded slowly. All right, I'll try the hike, but if I start panicking... Jack held up a hand, stopping Caleb before he could spiral back into his doubts. If you panic, that's perfectly okay. Just promise me one thing. You'll let me be there to help you through it. We can't do this alone, remember? Caleb stared at Jack for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Jack felt the pressure washing over him again, as if both their futures hung in balance. Suddenly, Caleb's brows lifted in realization, almost as if he had already begun reframing his reality. I never thought I'd want to do this with you. Or anyone, really, Caleb said, his voice cracking slightly. But it's not just about the hike, is it? Jack felt a swell of hope and anxiety intertwine. Exactly. It's about rediscovering who you are, what you're capable of, and learning how to embrace it. The gravity of that statement settled between them. Jack realized that while he was helping Caleb confront his fears, he was also challenging his own perspectives on vulnerability and trust. Perhaps the greatest lesson was that transformation required both courage and companionship. Caleb finally extended his hand, a tentative yet sincere gesture that cemented their commitment, however fragile. So, when do we start? Jack exhaled, relief flooding through him. How about this weekend? A simple trail. Just us. Caleb agreed, and Jack could feel a glimmer of enthusiasm ignite in the air, a rarity for them both after years of self-imposed limitations. But as they turned to leave, Caleb's expression shifted, a flash of memory clouding his features. What if I reverse my decision? What if this is all just a fleeting impulse? Jack's pulse quickened at the possibility of slipping back into the shadows of doubt. Then we'll address it face to face, but you need to promise me, whenever you feel that impulse, you'll talk to me instead of retreating. Caleb's gaze hardened with resolve. If I can do this, I will. But I have to mean it. I can't keep hesitating. It's exhausting. Jack nodded, feeling their connection tighten through shared intensity. I believe in you, Caleb. And whatever challenges arise, I believe in us. With the path ahead finally illuminated, they each took the first tentative step toward a budding relationship grounded in honesty and courage. Yet in the back of Jack's mind loomed a question that wouldn't dissipate. Was their fragile progress enough to withstand the trials that surely awaited? They had begun their journey, but the real test loomed just around the corner. What awaited them on the trail, and would they weather the storm together? The morning sun streamed through the window, casting warm rays over Jack's desk. As he prepared for the upcoming hike with Caleb, excitement tinged with trepidation surged within him. He understood that this weekend would serve as a crucial milestone, a divide between the familiar comforts of inaction and the turbulent waters of exploration. He meticulously packed water bottles, snacks, and a map of the trail, his hands moving with the purpose of someone who recognizes this moment's potential. Yet as he focused on the preparation, a shadow of doubt crept in. Jack caught himself wondering whether he had inadvertently raised Caleb's expectations too high. What if the hike turned out to be overwhelming? What if Caleb retreated back into a shell, deeming the experience a failure? Jack's stomach twisted at the prospect. The last thing he wanted was to crush the flickering hope that had begun to ignite within Caleb. By the time Saturday arrived, Jack was bouncing between excitement and anxiety. He arrived at Caleb's apartment with a resolve to keep the energy light. They greeted each other with tentative smiles, Caleb's eyes betraying a hint of nervousness that mirrored Jack's own. "Ready?" Jack asked, attempting a casual tone that felt strained. Caleb took a deep breath before replying, "As ready as I can be, I guess." The drive to the trailhead was filled with carefully chosen topics of conversation, designed to set an encouraging tone. Jack steered the dialogue toward benign subjects: his love for nature, amusing anecdotes from previous excursions, the thrill of adventure. Caleb, while quiet, interspersed the chat with hesitant laughter and affirming remarks. It was a fragile dance of banter aimed at reinforcing the new bond they were attempting to forge. Upon arriving, the scent of pine trees filled the air, and Jack felt a surge of energy. They stepped onto the path, bordered by lush greenery, each stride a symbol of the commitment they had made to one another. Jack could almost feel the weight of the world dissolve with each step taken on the earthy trail. They quickly settled into a rhythm, the sound of their footsteps blending with the chirping of birds overhead. But shortly into the hike, Jack noticed Caleb's hesitance. His breaths had altered, quickening as they climbed an incline. Suddenly, it became clear that the reality of his fears was beginning to surface. "Hey, we can take a break," Jack suggested, stepping to the side. "Just a moment to catch your breath." Caleb nodded, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this after all," he murmured, a shadow passing over his face. "Caleb, look at where we are. You've already made it this far. That's more than most people would have dared to do." Jack aimed to infuse hope into the moment, though internally, he grappled with the fragility of success so far. "But what if I can't keep going?" Caleb's voice quivered, raw vulnerability spilling forth, exposing the depth of his trepidation. Jack hesitated, instinctively reaching for the right words. He understood this was not just a simple hike. It was a test woven with layers of personal challenge and confrontation. The stakes were higher than he'd anticipated. "You can lean on me. Remember what we discussed? If you feel overwhelmed, just say so. You don't have to face this alone." Caleb studied Jack, his expression a mix of doubt and yearning. Jack felt an intense wave of empathy. This wasn't simply about hiking. It was about breaking through years of isolation and self-doubt. As Caleb inhaled deeply, Jack couldn't help but reflect on his own journey. The past few years had been a blur of missed opportunities due to his own fears. Here they were, both standing at a precipice of change, wrestling with internal battles that felt utterly monumental yet shared. "Everything feels so big," Caleb admitted, the admission almost a whisper. "Some things are worth fighting for," Jack responded, conviction filling his voice. "This is your life, Caleb. You don't have to feel small in it. Let's take this one step at a time, together." The two resumed walking, Caleb's pace slightly more assured, though still wary. A part of Jack felt that they had staved off the demons of doubt for now, but another part sensed that the real test lay not in how far they could hike today, but how deeply they could dig into their own fears and insecurities. As the trail dipped into shadows cast by towering trees, a sudden rustle nearby caught their attention. Jack's heart raced, not from fear of the animal lurking, but from an overwhelming realization. The true challenge was now inextricably linked to the nature of their journey. Was this hike simply a physical challenge, or was it a mirror reflecting the steep climbs of their emotional terrain? What if this hike isn't just about getting somewhere? Caleb pondered aloud, his brows furrowing in contemplation. Jack's pulse quickened. What if it is about discovering who we are under pressure? The forest around them seemed to pulse with anticipation, a living canvas for their revelations. As they ventured deeper, each step became a question, a mystery waiting to unfurl. What awaited them ahead, both on the trail and within themselves, felt more daunting than ever. Are we really ready for this? Jack wondered internally, questioning the strength of their determination and the depth of their connections with one another. And in that moment, a new emotion intertwined with resolve, the uncertainty that even if they embraced their fears today, the trials that lay ahead could reveal challenges they hadn't even considered. Would they find the strength to confront what awaited them? The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the forest floor as Jack and Caleb navigated the trail. Jack felt the fresh air fill his lungs, invigorating him and sharpening his focus. He aimed to stay present and supportive, while internally battling his own uncertainties regarding the hike and what it meant for their evolving relationship. As they rounded a bend, the trail steepened, each upward step echoing the metaphorical journey they were undertaking. Jack could see the tension still flickering across Caleb's face, a mix of determination and trepidation. Would they conquer this trek, or would it unravel their hard-fought progress? "Jack?" Caleb's voice pulled him from his thoughts. I don't know if I can keep doing this." "Caleb, I know it feels intense right now, but remember, this moment doesn't define your journey. Each step is an achievement, and I'm right here with you." Jack pointed to a nearby bench carved from a fallen tree, suggesting they take another break. Caleb's expression softened, betraying a vulnerability that had begun to surface throughout their time together. "It's like I'm finding a part of myself I thought was long gone. Yet, with every step, I also feel all this weight pressing down on me." Jack nodded, feeling the resonance of Caleb's words in his own heart. It's natural to feel both exhilaration and fear. Those can coexist, and navigating them together makes us stronger. As they sat on the tree bench, Jack felt a shift within him. This hike wasn't just about physical endurance, it represented the strength formed through shared experience, the mutual understanding that healing is a collective process, even amidst individual struggles. Sometimes I think about how I've let fear dictate my choices, Caleb admitted, his gaze directed toward the vibrant underbrush. Being stuck in that cycle has created this narrative where I feel trapped. Jack leaned in, encouraged by the openness. And now, you're taking steps toward rewriting that narrative. Every single moment we've spent doing this is part of regaining your power. A glimmer of determination sparked in Caleb's eyes as he processed Jack's words. You're right. This doesn't have to be just an uphill struggle. I have the chance to change that perception. So, let's view this hike as a metaphor for life. It won't always be easy. There will be undulating paths and daunting inclines. But every effort will add to your story. It's about progress, not perfection. Jack felt his own self-assurance solidifying in the reaffirmation of their shared journey. Caleb broke into a smile, one that radiated warmth and hope. I wish I would have realized that sooner. Thank you for being patient with me. Jack felt a wave of pride wash over him, not just for himself, but for Caleb. Patience is part of the process. Breaking free of constraints isn't meant to happen overnight. Fueled by their newfound understanding, they resumed their trek, but Jack knew they were venturing into more than just nature. With each stride, Caleb's confidence visibly grew, an unmistakable shift marked by the assurance in his rhythm. Jack felt the companionship between them solidifying, illuminating the potential for new beginnings. Reaching a viewpoint overlooking the vast expanse of the valleys below, sunlight filtered through clouds, momentarily illuminating the landscape in brilliant hues. Jack's heart raced. He sensed the culmination of their efforts converging into this transformative shared experience. We made it, Caleb breathed, incredulous as he took in the panoramic scene. I didn't think I would get here, honestly. Jack smiled, heart swelling with pride for both Caleb and their journey. This moment is a testament to your strength. You're more resilient than you realize. As they stood side by side, Jack felt the air shift again, an instinctual acknowledgement of the power within this moment. For the first time, he sensed the potential of what could emerge from their relationship, the intertwining of their journeys not merely as individuals, but as allies in emotional growth. Caleb turned to Jack, a profound expression dawning on his face. You've shown me it's okay to be vulnerable about how I've been feeling. I've spent too much time hiding behind my fears. That's a significant realization, Jack replied, his tone warm and encouraging. Acknowledging fear is the first step towards moving beyond it. And that's exactly what I want to continue doing, Caleb said passionately, seemingly invigorated by their dialogue. To keep moving forward together, carving out this new path. In that pivotal moment, Jack felt the bonds of companionship solidify into something deeper, a shared understanding of not only personal goals, but mutual aspirations. The realization settled within him. This hike had become a metaphor for their journeys, echoing the struggle for authenticity amid the pressures of societal expectations. Whatever happens from here on out, I'm committed to this journey, Caleb. We can support each other as we confront our pasts and forge ahead toward a brighter tomorrow. Jack's voice rang with confidence. I want that too, Caleb responded, eyes gleaming with determination. Your willingness to face your past gives me courage to do the same. It makes me believe I can redefine what lies ahead. With that conviction resonating between them, they began their descent down the trail. The downward slope symbolized more than a physical return. It held the essence of newfound hope. Jack and Caleb ventured forward, not just as two men reclaiming their lives, but as partners ready to embrace the journey ahead, facing the uncertainties together, each step forging renewed strength. Jack's heart swelled with clarity and fulfillment, finally recognizing that the real achievement resided not in the distance they covered, but in the trust and support they offered each other. It wasn't merely a hike, it was their renewed commitment to living authentically and courageously, hand in hand, prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them on the other side. As they hit the shoreline of the forest, stepping into the sunlight, Jack realized they were on the precipice of something extraordinary, life unshackled from the burdens of grief and expectations. This was the beginning of their journey, and he would never look back. You need to subscribe now to our channel for more transformative stories like this one. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to boost the algorithm and help others discover this emotional journey. Comment your thoughts and insights about Jack's incredible transformation and Caleb's growth. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video instantaneously with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion.